my screen and let me start recording. Okay, so yesterday we were discussing about EC2 fleet, which is a mix of spot and on-demand. So I just wanted to reiterate in a more understandable way so that it will be easier to get on. So EC2 fleet is a mix of two types of instances, basically, either spot and on-demand. Earlier, we don't have the option to mix up with on-demand instances. It's only spot fleet. There was this option earlier also, but only includes spot instances. But last year they have introduced to include on-demand instances also. So now we have two types of instances to be selected as part of the fleet. What if we don't have this option? So as earlier days, if we have only spot instances in the fleet, what happens? Even though we are getting the instances for the lesser price, there is no guarantee of the resource allocation. Your instances will be terminated after some time when the AWS gets higher bit. So if the fleet only contains either spot or on demand, there is no benefit of creating a fleet in overall. So if it is all spot fleet, then you have a problem of the resource availability, but you will be getting the price benefit. If it is only all on-demand instances, then the price will be very high and you will be guaranteed with the resources. So both of these unique combinations may not satisfy your requirements at any time. So that's why they have come up with this new solution by mixing spot and on-demand. So you will be getting the benefit of price benefit as well as the resource availability. In case if your spot instances getting terminated, your on-demand instances can take care of the ongoing requests. They will not be terminated never, right? So in case if your spot will be gone, then on-demand will be there to satisfy your needs. So to create the fleet, to create the fleet, we need to have a couple of instances to be selected as part of the acceptable instances. So that's the mandatory requirement. You should not have one type of instance as part of your fleet because it all depends on the pricing algorithm. So AWS actually wants to give you some pricing benefit along with the resource availability. So to satisfy this need, you must select between multiple instance types. That's called as acceptable instances for the customer. So in our example, we are selecting M4 16x large and M5 24x large families as our acceptable instances. So when you create this particular fleet using these two instances, depending on the pricing benefit at that point of time and the resource availability, AWS will automatically select between one of the instance which is having lesser price and also have higher capacity to be available. So based on these parameters, it will actually select the best instance that is suitable for your needs. So definitely they will try to give you higher price benefit, at least 70% of overall cost will be saving for you. So when you create the fleet, you have to select a parameter to instantiate the instances. So you can select instances as the weighted parameter or vCPUs as the weighted parameter. So in our example, so I wanted to create a fleet with 2880 vCPU as the target capacity. I'm not talking about instances here. I'm talking about vCPU count. That is what my target capacity is. So the total target capacity has to be accommodated by the fleet entirely, and Amazon will take care of the selecting the type of instances to accommodate these total vCPUs. So along with the target capacity, you will be giving how much percentage of this total capacity has to be spot and how much capacity to be on demand. So based on your percentage calculation, AWS will automatically allocate the instance that is suitable for you and fulfills your request at the end of the day. So for example, in these two instances, if Amazon is seeing higher price benefit for M4 16x large at the point of the EC2 fleet creation, it will select the same instance for spot and on demand also. So that's how it is actually calculating the pricing benefit for the customer. So the availability of the instance pool. If the underlying hardware doesn't have instance pool for M4 16x large, definitely you should go for the next instance type and select from the different physical hypervisor. So depending on the resource availability and pricing benefit, it will actually switch between both of the instances and give you the highest benefit. So it cannot be like two instances will be mixed up always. It cannot be like only one type of instance will be allocated for your entire 2880 vCPU. It's a like mix and match completely depending on the resource availability and the pricing benefit that you'll get. So everything will be taken care by the Amazon itself in the background. So you just need to define your target capacity and how much on demand you want it to be there in case of spot fleet, spot instances getting terminated. You should be having some capacity that will be handled, that will be used to handle the ongoing requests. So if your target capacity is 100%, you might need to choose 25% as on-demand capacity and 75% as spot capacity, so that you will be getting the price benefit and the resource availability also. So that's how the EC2 fleet actually works. So that is the important concept to be understood. And next, we are moving on with scheduled reserved instances. So what is scheduled reserved instances? This is another type of reserved instance. We discussed about reserved instances earlier. So which is like we are giving some commitment to AWS, saying that I'll be using your resources for 1 year or at least 1 year or 3 years for 3 year period, 3 years of time. So the commitment should be there for the reserved instance. But scheduled reserved instances, you will be having a flexibility of choosing the timings, like a particular schedule, daily or weekly or monthly. It depends on your selection. So here you will be having only one option, that is 1 year term. There is no 3 year term or something like that. But in the original reserved instances scenario, your reserved instances will be running throughout the day, 24/7. But scheduled reserved instances is a different case. You can select your instances to be running daily 4 hours or maybe weekly 4 hours or something like that. So you can actually schedule your capacity in a recurring way so that you can reduce your cost. Let's say, for example, IRCTC is the best example. So they will be seeing every day 2 hour peak between 10 to 12 p.m. So for them, the original reserved instances won't give any pricing benefit, because even though you will be getting some discounts with the reserved instances, but those instances will be running 24/7 throughout the year, whatever the commitment you have given. But you don't require the additional instances once the traffic has been decreased. Let's say in the example of IRCTC, after 12 p.m., the traffic will be goes down automatically. At 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., it will be very less. So whatever the infrastructure, the default infrastructure that they have, it can accommodate the rest of the day. But during the peak hours between 10 to 12 p.m., you should have additional resources. In such case, going up with the original reserved instances will not benefit you in any case, any way. So you'll be adding additional resources using the reserved instance option, but except those 2 hours, the rest of the day, these instances will be sitting idle in the original reserved instances. So to help in such scenarios, they have come up with a solution called scheduled reserved instances. In this case, you will be giving 1 year commitment to them, but these instances will not be running 24/7. You can decide when, from what time to what time they can run. Let's say, for example, I want to run the instances, additional instances between 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for IRCTC, whatever the additional instances daily. That's how I select. So those 4 hours you will be getting these reserved instances additionally, and after the 4 hours completion they will be terminated. And again tomorrow they will be spinned up at 9 a.m. and your infrastructure will be scaled automatically to handle the load totally. So if you want to continue these particular instances throughout the day, that's up to you. You can select 24/7 also. There is an option for that too, but it's not necessary. If that is the case, we can actually go ahead with the original reserved instances itself. There is no point of selecting scheduled reserved instances. So it's like using the resources in a very granular way. When you do the capacity planning for your application, having knowledge of these kinds of instances will be very good to give some benefits to the organization that you work with. So to take advantage of the scheduled reserved instances, we need to go to the AWS portal, and EC2 instances section, you will be seeing this option. So when you actually go ahead and create your scheduled instances, you will be seeing something like this. So if you can see the screenshot, you can actually find available schedules. So it depends on your need. You can select between daily, weekly, monthly, and hours of duration that you require these instances for, and what kind of operating system you need, and what size of the instance should be. And the last option is availability zone. So it all depends on the resource availability again. So you have selected, you wanted to select a couple of resources for the next 1 month, starting September 11 to October 11. You want to have additional resources to be running every day for 4 hours of time. So in your availability zone, if you're trying to find with your specific requirement, there is a chance of resource availability and vice versa. Basically, there is no chance of getting the resources allocated to you also, because people may already have scheduled instances for their utilization, or may that particular availability zone resources have been exhausted due to the highest utilization from all customers. So it all depends on the underlying resource availability again. So if you have the resources available in the timings that you specify, Amazon will show you something like available schedules, from which you can actually select whatever the schedule you need, and automatically everything will be taken care by Amazon itself in the background. So let me show you in the real time how it looks like. So we need to go to the EC2 dashboard. From there, on the left hand side, from the menu, you can see scheduled instances here. So by clicking on that, we can go to the page that we actually took a screenshot. So here in the dashboard page, they have mentioned reserved capacity and plan ahead and save. So it's only for a couple of hours every day. You don't have the need of running the instances every day 24/7, 24 hours. So in such cases, you can save a lot of money by not running the instances in the off-peak hours. So this is the best option for that. So click on purchase selected scheduled instances. So here you can see the schedules. So it's showing the current day 9, that is September 10th. And if you want the hours to be 4 hours, I think minimum is 4 hours. So if you see here, scheduled instances allows you to purchase recurring Amazon EC2 compute capacity by hour for a 1-year term. So 1 year is the mandatory term for this. You cannot purchase it for 1 month, 2 months, something like that. If you want to purchase, you have to purchase for one year. And you can take this option, because at the exact point of time, you may not be find the schedules available. If you select with the default options, if you click on find, you may not be seeing all the schedules available sometimes. So that is the reason they are giving plus or minus 2 hours. So for your requirement, they will at least add 2 hours before or 2 hours after. So based on that, you can see the schedules. And recurring option is for daily, weekly, and monthly. So if you want to run the instances for 4 hours every day, you can do that. Or if you want to run the instance 4 hours every week or 4 hours monthly, you can do that. It's up to you. You can choose between different options. Just give me a moment, guys. I'm getting a call. Sorry. Guys, just a call. So you can select between the recurring schedules daily, weekly, or monthly, and the duration that you want to run the instance for. So, and the platform between Windows and Linux, and the instance size, you can select between any of the instance sizes, and availability zone. Based on the region that you have selected, it will show the availability zones. We are in the East US, North Virginia region, so you'll be seeing the availability zone that specific to that particular region. And once you select all these combinations, when you click on Find Schedules, you will see the available slots. So if you select Windows, we are able to see only one slot available. So and with only one size available. Here we have selected any as the option. So that is the reason C4X large is showing. If you want to select only C3X large, you may not be able to find the schedule. So there are no schedules matching your such criteria. So that is the reason we have selected any as the option. So obviously you will be seeing some schedule. So to take the advantage of the scheduled instances, you need to add it to the cart and the number of instances you want to purchase for the next 1 year and in the recurring basis. And if you can see, there is no capacity available in North Virginia region for Windows instances starting this particular period. Only one slot is available. So you cannot make it 2 or 10 because it will definitely throw you some error. There are no slots are available. So no instances are available. So only one instance is available at the moment. This is called as resource crunch. So underlying infrastructure is unable to provide you the capacity that you desired. So in this case, we are seeing that only one C4X large Windows instance slot is available. And if you want to schedule it, you can do so. Otherwise, you have to choose a different date, maybe tomorrow or something like that. So you will see some difference. If there are some slots available, you can see them. Otherwise, it will be the same way. Like we are selecting all the availability zones across the region, North Virginia. So if you select East 1A, you may not be able to see the schedule because the available schedule is from East 1D. If you see, so only one availability zone has the capacity that you are requesting for. So if you want to go ahead with this available capacity, you can add it to cart and you have to pay the bill. Then you will be the total bill for the C4X large instance for the 1 year period with a 4 hours daily recurring schedule. You will be charged at 541.68 cents, and you can go ahead and purchase this particular instance slot. So every day at certain 5 p.m. you will be created with this instance, and it will run for 4 hours and terminated after that. So this is what scheduled instances are basically. So to reduce the ongoing cost with the other types of instances, they will be giving you the flexibility of selecting the schedule whenever you want throughout the day or a couple of hours, something like that. So this is about the scheduled instances. And the next topic in this EC2 is dedicated instances. So we are actually coming to the end of instance types. Basically, there is one more only, dedicated host. So just one to go. It's dedicated instances. Dedicated instances are nothing but when we create our first EC2 instances, if you can recollect, there is an option for shared and dedicated tenancy. So I said, if you select the shared tenancy, your instance will be created alongside of all other customers, which means the underlying physical hardware will be shared by the other customers also, if it is a shared tenancy. If it is a dedicated tenancy, then that particular hardware, whatever the physical server that you are willing to create your instance on, will be dedicated to you. It will not be shared with any of other customers. The complete physical box will be dedicated to you. But the downfall of this thing is you don't have the control. You'll not be having any control over the physical box. So you can place instances on a specific box, and there is no visibility of the box also, physical server, but you will be completely assigned with a dedicated hardware for your tenancy if you select dedicated instances. And one more thing is, like, if you have other types of instances in your subscription, for example, on-demand instances, or maybe spot instances or reserved instances within your subscription, if you're having alongside of your dedicated instances, then those instances will be placed on your dedicated hardware. So in that way, you will be sharing your physical server with the rest of the instances. But no other way that it can be shared with the other customers. Basically, the physical host will be dedicated for your subscription entirely. Completely, it will be dedicated for you. So it can be only shared with the other instances within your subscription, but it should not be shared with any of the other customers. Or even a subscription is nothing but an account in AWS cloud. So when you create a subscription, you automatically will be create a account which is called as billing account. So you can create multiple accounts under a specific subscription if you want. So for example, for the finance department, I wanted to create an account. For the marketing department, I wanted to create another account, so that the billing visibility will be high. You can actually look at which department is actually consuming highest resources and how much bill is getting generated for each department if you create in such a way. So this dedicated instance, when you create this, if the instance belongs to account department and you have created the dedicated instance for account department, and you will be allocated with a physical server for your account. This, even though they are marketing and finance under same subscription, this particular physical host will never be shared with marketing team also. So there is a limitation of not sharing with the other customers. There is a limitation of not sharing with the other accounts from the same subscription also. It is only shared with your instances from your account within the subscription, completely dedicated to you. So, but you will not be having any control over the dedicated instance. The pricing for the, obviously the pricing for the dedicated instances will be higher, because if the physical server is having highest capacity of resources, like for example 4 TB of RAM, maybe 10 TB of RAM, and some 80 BPU, something like that, it's not being shared with the other customers and it's completely dedicated to you, right? So whatever the number of instances you create will be getting advantage of total hardware resources. So that's how dedicated instances actually useful for you. If you have a workload that requires highest resources, then the dedicated instances will be an option for you, but the pricing will be higher when compared to other types of instances, even more than on-demand instances. And so this is all about dedicated instances. Let me show you where you can create the dedicated instances. Let me go back to the EC2 dashboard. And when you create the instance, launch instance, so you'll be selecting your AMI, something like I just wanted to select randomly, and I'm going to select the random size. So here you can see the tenancy. So between shared and dedicated, you can select the dedicated option to create a dedicated instance. So there will be no visibility of physical host here, but definitely a physical server will be allocated to you when you choose this type of tenancy. And there is one more option, dedicated host, which is not actually it's grayed out right now because we don't have any dedicated host, so it's grayed out. But between the shared and dedicated instance type, you can actually select whatever the type you want. So this is how you can create the dedicated instances. So the pricing will be different for this. So this is all about the dedicated tenancy. And the next one is dedicated hosts. Dedicated hosts are something like a physical server. This is the opposite of dedicated instance, in fact. So here you can actually purchase a bare metal server completely. So you will be selecting between different types of hardware, and automatically whatever the hardware resources you have, those will be detected. Those will be utilized for your instances completely. So here you can have an advantage of selecting multiple types of instances, and whatever the type of instance you want to create on this particular hardware, everything will be in the control of the customer itself. So you can select between the types of instances. Again, you cannot create your own instances here. You just you can create only the Amazon predefined instance types, and between those instance types, you can take advantage of the dedicated hardware and place your instances on top of it. And you will be having the control of the physical hardware here, so that you can actually, if you have a license with you for the operating system, you can utilize that. And if you have a software like Tally or something, some camera related application, or maybe something related to hardware cards or something like that, in such case, those applications will be having a requirement of MAC address to be binded to the application. In such case, this dedicated host option will be the best choice, because you will be seeing the MAC address for which is allocated for this dedicated host, and you can actually bind the MAC address with the application because you have control over the physical server. And also, as I mentioned, you can utilize the licensing that you have in your hand, and so those costs will be excluded when you select the dedicated host option. So to create the dedicated host option, you have to purchase a host prior to the creation of instances. You can place as many number of instances as you want, depending on the hardware server configuration, and you can place any type of the instance. It's not instance specific billing here. Remember, if you select on demand as or something, another thing, spot pricing or maybe reserved instance, you have to select a specific instance type where the pricing will be depending on the size of the instance. But here you're purchasing the physical server completely. So you can place whatever the instance you want. There is no additional charge for that. You can place X4 large instances or X5 large instances. Whatever the size you have, you can select between those sizes and place your instances on top of the dedicated host. So that's how the dedicated host will work. And let me show you the dedicated host option here. In the EC2 console, we need to go there again, and it's a bare metal option. Just remember that. So here we have an option for dedicated host. So bring your own license, control instance placement, meet compliance and regulatory requirements. What does it mean by meet compliance and regulatory requirements? So every country will have their own regulatory requirements, like HIPAA, or Europe has their own requirements, and India has their own requirements. So by dedicating a host, you can actually control all these things, meet compliant requirements from the government, and also you can take advantage of your licenses, etc. So if you want Amazon to allocate a host for you, you just need to click on allocate a host, and you can select between these bare metal options. So there are hosts with 96 CPUs and 384 GB memory allocated. So you can select any of them. So the pricing, it's like renting a server simply. So the pricing will be depending on the resources that you have, and you can select from any of the availability zones. Instance auto placement. What does it mean by every physical server has its own pools? It cannot accommodate all the instance pools on a single server, right? So if you give AWS to place the instances by selecting the respective pools, it will take care of where to place the instance, in which pool it should be. Kind of information will be taken care by the Amazon itself. Host recovery options. It's like when the host is dead, the physical server is dead, which means your entire infrastructure is dead. So in that case, if you have control to look at the hardware layer, like BIOS or something like that, so if you want to have the console level access, that particular thing will be given by this particular option. So everything will be charged here. So for every option you will be charged. But the highest possible pricing option is the dedicated host only. It is the highest thing that Amazon charges from the customer. So how many number of hosts you want to purchase, you want to rent, for example. So there is no time specific for this. If you want to cancel the renting, you can do so at any time, but I think minimum is 1 month, something like that. So you can select between any of the number of hosts that can be purchased, and just allocate a host depending on the availability of the resources. Amazon will allocate a host for you, and you can actually create the instances. Again, once you allocate a host, you can create the instances from the same wizard that we follow for the EC2. Earlier, the dedicated host option is grayed out, right? So when you allocate it with a physical server, a host, then you will be seeing that option will be activated in here in the tenancy. It's now grayed out. I cannot select this option. We don't have any dedicated host allocated for us in this subscription, so it's grayed out. If you have a dedicated host allocated, using the same wizard, you can create your instances and place them on top of your dedicated server, dedicated instance, dedicated host, I'm sorry. So that's how you can actually select between all of these types of instances. So the one last thing under instances is pending. So I'll just cover it up, and I'll reiterate all the instance types one more time for today, and then we'll move on with other options that are available under EC2 dashboard. So there is one more option called capacity reservations. So the most type of options that we have for the instance allocation is reservation only. We have 3 options for reservations. One is original reserved instances, which is for the 1 year or 3 year commitment. The other one is 1 year commitment with recurring schedules. And capacity reservation is something you're not committing any time frame. You will not be committing any time frame. There are 2 options here. If you want to cancel the reservation at any point of time manually, you need to choose this option. So you're not committing for 1 year or 3 years, something like that. If you select this option, you can cancel your reservation at any point of time. Or if you want to specify a particular time, for example, 3 months from now, or maybe 6 months from now, I wanted to cancel my reservation. It's not like 1 year commitment. So whatever the benefits you have for the reserved instances, like regional reserved instances, zonal reserved instances, you can take advantages of those type of instances also in this particular options. So it's a customized flexible option for the customer basically. So if you see the options for capacity reservation, it's just like you're allocating some capacity for your needs for a specific customized time frame. That's all. It's not like recurring. It's not like 1 year commitment. It's just completely flexible option. So you can select between any of the instance types that you have here. And if you want to launch the instances with the EBS volumes, then you can do so by selecting this option. And also instance store that we discussed in the EC2 creation. Instance store is the local storage from the physical server. EBS volume is the SAN storage from the storage area network. It's a block level storage and this is a file level storage. So as storage is local to the host, it can be actually used for the cache purposes so that your virtual machine performance will be increased. So if you select to attach an instance store at launch, instance store provide temporary block level storage for instances. And this is a block level storage. I'm sorry, I said it at file level, but it's a block level storage for instances, but it's a temporary storage. It's not a permanent persistent storage. Whereas EBS is the persistent permanent storage. The data on an instance store volume persists only during the life of the associated instance. If the instance gets restarted, then the data on the instance store will be erased because the data will not be persistent anytime if you select instance store. You can choose two options here, and these two options only available when you select a specific type of instance. It's not available for all instance types. If you select A1 medium, it's grayed out. You can this particular instance only support EBS volumes. It will not support instance stores. So if you select other one, you will be having both options. So it depends on your requirement again. And the platform you want to reserve the instances, so Windows, and the availability zone where you want to reserve these instances, you can select. And of course, we are going to share the hardware with other customers because dedicated instances are a bit costly. So total quantity of the instances you want to create, and what are the quantity of instance you want to create, and reservation when you should want to end this reservation. You want to end it manually or you want to end it during a specific period of time. Again, it's not a 1 year or 3 year commitment. It's just a particular point of time. This reservation will end automatically, and all the instances that you create using this capacity reservation will be terminated automatically. So there are two more options: instance eligibility, criteria for associating launched instances to this reservation. So accepts open means accepts all instances that have matching details. So it's just like the instance type, availability zone, whatever the options you have selected. If any of the criteria is matching, open will be chosen as the option. Targeted means specific instance that we select. All the options should be matched. It should match with availability zone, it should match with tenancy and the instance type, whatever options we mentioned, it should match everything. So after selecting all these options, if you request for reservation, then based on the resource availability, Amazon will reserve some capacity for you, and till the target time, or if you want to cancel it in the middle of your usage, whatever the option you choose, it will run till then, and it will be terminated completely. So these are all the total instance for AWS cloud. So most of the interview questions are actually rotated around these instance types. So how do you actually select between the instance types, and what are the benefits of specific instance types? Such kind of questions will be asked. So I just wanted to iterate all the types one more time. And then from tomorrow, we'll be looking at AMIs, bundle tasks, and other options that we have in the EC2 dashboard. So we have 5 types of instances, I guess. So on-demand instances is the primary type of instance wherein a customer actually requests the instance at any point of time that he is looking for. That's what it is. That's why it is called as on-demand instance. You're actually allocating the resources on your need, on your control. So on-demand instances are the costliest instances across the virtual instances available, apart from the dedicated ones in the shared tenancy. And spot instances, those are like whatever the unused capacity in the AWS resource pool. So AWS has, if it has 100% of the capacity, definitely there should be a 50% of the capacity maybe, or 30 or 20 capacity maybe underutilized, unused. So it will not be like total all data centers, all availability zones are exhausted with the resource contention right now, because Amazon keep on adding data centers, keep on adding availability zones. So definitely they will be having some unused capacity sitting idle in their data centers. So they want to make something with that unused capacity and giving an option to the customer saying spot instances. Spot instances are only allocated from the unused capacity. Unused capacity in the sense, used capacity means either it should be on-demand instance, or it should be reserved instance, scheduled reserved, or capacity reservation, which is called as used capacity, which means some kind of commitment will be coming from the customer. So resources will be dedicated for the customers at any point of time. Unused in the sense there is no utilization at all. So completely free resources which are sitting idle in the physical infrastructure, those will be called as unused capacity. So Amazon wants to give that space, that particular slot for a lesser price, so that they can make some business out of it. Anyway, it is sitting idle, so they want to make some business out of it. So they're giving the capacity for the customer, saying spot instances. So using spot instances, you can actually you get your spot allocated for a period of time. The maximum period that you can get is for 6 hours. So more than 6 hours, no spot instance will run. So within the 6 hours, or at the point of 6 hours time, your spot will be terminated automatically. It all depends on the pricing again. So it depends on the auction. So whoever gives the highest bid, they will win the spot and will be allocated with the capacity. So if some customer comes up with higher bid, then your capacity will be terminated if there is no capacity to be allocated from the resource pool, in that scenario only. So it all depends on pricing, supply and demand. So if there is higher demand, there is no resource availability, and the user is paying more money, in such case your instance will be terminated and that spot will be allocated to him. So at any point of time, spot will be definitely terminated. It's not a permanent running machine. So it's not at all good for the production environment. And the other one is reserved instances, where you can actually reserve some capacity at the regional level or at the zonal level. Every type will have its own benefits. If you select the instance at the regional level, you can you will definitely getting resources to be allocated, because your instance will be spanned across multiple availability zones. One or the other availability zone will be having the capacity available at any point of time. It's not like all the availability zones exhaust with the resource pools. So any of the availability zone can accommodate your resource pool if you if you create the instance at the regional level. So capacity reservation cannot be guaranteed. It doesn't, like, if they are saying capacity reservation is not guaranteed, which doesn't mean you're not getting allocated with the resources and your request will be failed, because Amazon has a lot of resources available anyway. So you'll definitely get resource allocation guaranteed. But for the terms and conditions, they will say capacity not guaranteed. And if you select the instance at the availability zone, definitely you will be allocated with capacity reservation. So at any point of time, your capacity will be yours. And due to these reasons, there are two more options available for the end users. Those are called as convertible instances and standard instances within the reserved. So convertible instance means you can switch between different instance types. Standard instance means you cannot switch between instance type size. If you select one size at the beginning of your reservation, then you should stick with it throughout the life cycle of the virtual machine, which means 1 year. So if you want to switch in the standard way, you have to sell it through the AWS marketplace and purchase a new instance size. That is the only option available for standard customers. If it is a convertible instance, which is created at regional or zonal level, you can convert between the size, and you can actually switch between the sizes. That is a flexibility, so that you cannot sell it through the marketplace. So that is the limitation for them. So it all depends on your planning at the beginning of your reservation, and the reservation will give you some benefit in the pricing. And the other one is scheduled reserved instances, wherein you'll not be committing your capacity reservation for 1 year or 3 year terms, but 1 year term is mandatory, and you will not be running your instances throughout the day. You can select between different schedules. If you want to run the instances for 4 hours every day, you can select that. It depends on your application requirements. If your application have some peak hours utilization, then you can go for scheduled instances. That is a better option than reserved instances, because the savings will be more. You'll not be consuming the resources throughout the day. You'll be only allocating resources, reserving resources for specific amount of time. So you'll be seeing a lot of pricing benefit there also. And dedicated instances is the next option, where you will be dedicated a host. You'll be having a dedicated host for your tenancy, your account, and it will not be, that particular physical server will not be shared with any other customer or any other account from your subscription. So your subscription may contain multiple accounts for different departments. So if you select a dedicated instance for one of your department, this particular dedicated instance is dedicated for that department only. It cannot be shared with other department also, even though if it is in the same subscription. And alongside, it should not be shared with the other customers at all. There is no possibility at all. But this particular host can accommodate other instance types from your account within the subscription, from your department within the subscription. If you have spot or on-demand instances running within your account, there is a possibility of the host can accommodate resources for those instances also. It can only be shared with your own instances. That is a dedicated instance. The charges for the dedicated instances are high when compared to the rest of instances. And dedicated host, it's like complete a host, a physical bare metal server will be rented to you, wherein you can select the different instance types that you want to place on it. So far we have seen all the instance types will be charged at the instance size level. So specific to instance size, A2.medium, A1.xlarge, whatever it is, based on the size only, you will be charged per instance basis. But when you select the dedicated host option, you can choose between any of the instance types. You will not be charged at the instance level. You will be charged at the dedicated host level. So dedicated host only will be useful when you have MAC binding applications, or maybe you have some regulatory requirements from the government, or if you have if you want to control your complete host by yourself, then in such cases you can actually rent the servers from the AWS and you can take the control of entire host. So you can dedicate the resources, allocate the resources to different instances based on the core resources. If you have capacity of 340 GB, you need to calculate how many instances you can place on top of it. Based on that, you can actually create your instances. And also you have control over the console and stuff like that to manage this particular host. The last and final option in this section is capacity reservations, wherein it is also similar to reserved instances, but you will not be giving any commitment like 1 year or 3 year terms. So you can cancel your commitment anytime. if you want to choose manual option, or if you want to cancel it automatically, you can specify the reservation ending time so that the reservation will be capacity reservation will be automatically cancelled by itself by Amazon. So this is also, you can also get the pricing benefits using this reservation option. So whatever the options that are available, spot, reserved, scheduled instances, capacity reservations, these 4 types of options, you can get pricing benefits, and the resources will be only allocated when you have the resource pool available in the backend infrastructure. But for on-demand instances, it's not like that. Whether they have resources or not, they should allocate the resources. That is the highest priority request. So if such scenario comes up, and if they are exhausted with the existing resource pools, they don't have capacity to accommodate your on-demand instances, they will see a spot instances and terminate those instances to actually meet your needs of on-demand instances. So that's how they will maintain entire infrastructure in the backend. And more than on-demand instances, dedicated instances and dedicated hosts are the highest charging types. So the pricing for there is no benefit of any discounts or nothing like that. So you will be charged with highest billing for the dedicated instances, and more than that, dedicated hosts are the costliest ones. So this is all about the instances easy to compute in the AWS cloud. So we'll be discussing more about AMIs, launch configurations, load balancers, target groups, etc. in the coming sessions. And I'll be moving on with VPC. So we stopped at Internet Gateway in the VPC. Then I'll start with the VPC components to connect the dots from where we left. We'll continue from there, so that as we have knowledge on the EC2 now, it will be easier to understand how these dots will be connected using the VPC and the other components across AWS. So that's all for today. I just wanted to wrap it up, and thank you so much for your time, guys.